Hello, let's make a granny square. So you need your yarn, your hook. I'm using a 4 hook here. Yeah, 4 hook. So you can use any kind of hook size that you have, and the scissors. So to start out, we are going to make a magic ring. For my magic ring, I'm going to start by chaining. So I'll be chaining about 4 to 5 chains that will serve as my magic ring. So okay. Okay, so I chained 5, and on the first chain, I'll make a slip knot. So that little circle in between little O will serve as my magic ring. Okay. So now to make our granny square, I'll be chaining 3, which will serve as my first double crochet. Then I'll chain 2 extra double crochet. So that will be my first cluster of double crochet stitches. Okay. So after making my first cluster, I'll go ahead to chain 2, then work another cluster of double crochet. That is 3 double crochets. Remember, each cluster is 3 double crochet. Okay, so now I've made my second cluster. Then I'll chain 2 again and make another cluster. Remember, we are making a granny square, and a square has 4 sides. So altogether we should have 4 clusters on our magic ring. Okay, 4 clusters, because we are working a square shape. So for each cluster, it has to be followed by a chain to space. Okay, so after making my 4th cluster, I'm just dragging my tail out like that. Okay, so I have 4 clusters, 2, 3, 4. Now to close up this first row, I'll be chaining 2. Then I'll slip stitch right into the top of that chain 3 I did from the beginning of the row. Now that makes up our first round of granny square. So I'll chain 3 again, and into that that chain to space, that previous chain to space, I'll work 2 extra double crochet. Okay, now when we are coming back, you see what I'm going to do to end that row. For this second row, the second row is usually a row of increase. So into every chain 2 spaces, you're going to be making 2 clusters of double crochet. Okay, so you make 3 double crochets in one O, chain 2 and 3 double crochet. Basically, you are just increasing, so you are making 2 clusters into each chain 2 space. Remember, you have to separate each clusters with a chain 2 space. Okay, so I've made my first increase here. Now for the second row, I'm just chaining 1 as my chain space here. As you go on, you can decide to chain 2. It's based on your preference. So for the next chain space, I'll make another cluster of double crochet, and I'll chain 2 and make another cluster. All right, now that serves as my second increase. Now on to my third increase. I've done that. Then back to now to close up this row. Now I'll chain 2. Remember when we started out, we only made a cluster. So now we are going to add an extra cluster into that last space there, so that we have 2 clusters on each chain spaces across the second row. Okay, so after doing that, I'll chain 2 and slip stitch into the top of the chain 3 space, and I'll close up just like that. Yeah, so you see our square is already forming out. We already have 4 sharp corners there. So those 4 sharp corners are the only places where we are going to be increasing from now on, meaning those sharp corners will be the only place where you will have 2 clusters altogether. Now in any other space that you have in between your edges, you only make 1 cluster. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So for the next space again, for the next row, the third row, I just made another cluster chain 2 and into the next chain space just one cluster, because that is not a corner, so I'll make just one cluster right there. Then I'll chain 2 again, and into that corner there, that next chain space we are working into is a corner, I'll make 2 clusters of double crochets, okay, to serve as an increase, because we want our squares to increase on each corner to give us that square shape desired that we want. Okay, so you see, that's my first increase. So I'm just going to increase at each corners. Okay, so now I've increased at each corners. All right, now for the last increase, which is back to my previous the beginning of my row, I'm just going to make the last cluster there, because that corner also is it also serves as a place where we have to increase. Okay, so in total, in this third row, you should only increase in 4 places, and those are the 4 corners of your square. So you close up by chaining 2 and making a slip knot just like that. And that's just how to make a granny square. You keep increasing at each corner by making 2 clusters. Some people might decide to make chain 2 spaces, some might decide to make chain 1 space, some might decide not to even make chain space at all. So it's all based on preference and how you want your work to look, want your work to turn out to be. All right, so I'll go ahead to make an extra row. Okay, I'll go ahead to make an extra row. I think this should be my 4th row now. Is it my 4th row? Yes, my 4th row. So you notice that from row 1 we only made 4 clusters. Row 2 we increased into each of the chain spaces. For row 3 we increased only into the corners. For row 4 also, we are also increasing only into the corners. So you can do as much as you like and make as many rows as you like, and you can turn your granny square into a table mat or whatever you want it to be, or into an armrest, just whatever you think you can make your granny square with. But be rest assured that there is an upcoming tutorial on a project that has to do with granny squares, so kindly watch out, and I'll see you next time. All right.